big takeaway this week in the 40k competitive scene is that giving orcs more Dakka is a pretty big mistake. Normally, I don't talk about the competitive meta on this channel, but now that I'm a certified top table player at a proper 40k super major, I have the authority to talk about these topics like my opinion is worth anything. Yeah, that's right, you heard, I'm a top table player. I was on table 1 against a certified pro player, Ben Jones, the winner of the entire South Coast Super Major. Even at my first event, the 18 Centurions went toe-to-toe with the cream of the crop, professional 40k. Don't question the fact that it was the first game, so it was down to luck of the draw that I was there. I was still there, damn it! For a brief moment, I was on top. And then another brief moment later, I was absolutely not on top, so, you know. The Screaming Ravens got a first-hand showing of the raw power of this More Dakka detachment. And not only did I get to see one of the most powerful and broken metalists in action, I got to see it piloted by the person who had gone to win the entire event. But is Ben Jones really that good? Or was his victory only due to the fact that he was using the detachment that the community has described as, let's say, somewhat questionable? Is it better to be meta than just actually good? Rather than tease the answer to that question for the whole video, the answer is you have to be good at the game. Yes, it's better to be good than meta. I think people do get a bit too hung up about the meta. Pro players are going to latch on to the broken stuff to win. That's their job. It's the same in competitive video games. You'll see the same picks over and over because if you want to win, why would you handicap yourself by taking something suboptimal? So that's the top 0.01%. Yes, More Dakka got the top 3 spots in both big events this week. But the people running those lists are the same people who top events all the time with a variety of lists. There were 12 Dakka Ork lists at the South Coast Super Major, only 3 made it to 5-0. So there are 9 people who took the guaranteed win detachment and didn't. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad players, or well, they might be bad players, I don't know, but, you know, you still have to be good to win, right? If Ben and I played again, but we swapped lists, I guarantee he would still win. I don't know how to pilot More Dakka effectively, and Ben isn't just an orc player. He knew my army better than I did. Before I'd even looked at my data cards, he'd have the answer to what my units did, and a lot of the tactical choices and game plans that he has transcend what list you bring. Playing against a player like Ben teaches you a whole ton of stuff, and despite originally feeling like I was unlucky to get a first round drawn to the top table against More Dakka, I actually now consider myself extremely privileged to get the opportunity to play a top level player and talk to him about the game and his experience. Even during the game, he helped me with my secondaries. In my round 4, I had literally 1 Centurion left. At the end of his round 3, I had used a CP to put him to reserves, hoping to put him down somewhere to at least get some points on some secondaries before the game finishes. I drew behind enemy lines, great, and overwhelming force. And looking at the board, I thought, I guess I need to try and get some more points. I need to find one like an action one, maybe like sabotage or something, instead of this overwhelming, and I spent a CP to replace it. However, Ben intervened, saying that I could actually get overwhelming force and behind enemy lines, as he'd seen a spot that I hadn't, which was in line of one of his weakened trucks, which was on an objective. He allowed me to take back the redraw and keep my original cards for the extra 6 victory points. After the brutal deconstruction of my 18 Centurions, I asked Ben what I could have done differently or what he would have done in my situation to try and learn more. And Ben, being the top bloke that he is, did give me some advice, so we had a chat about some ideas. But you could tell in his brain he was internally screaming, I wouldn't bring 18 Centurions in the first place. What are you doing? Before we move on to discussing about More Dakka, I do want to say a big thank you to Ben for being an excellent opponent. But there's always a worry about feeling out of place as a new player at tournaments like this, and feeling like I'm wasting a pro player's time with my silly list, or feeling like I was giving Ben an easy win that wouldn't give him the practice he wants. But he was very respectful, kind, helpful, and an absolute joy to play against, and even came up to me whilst I was sitting on my phone playing Ballatra after my game 5 to have a quick chat about how my tournament went. Absolutely fantastic guy, and congratulations on the victory. I also want to mention the incredible power of the Mad Case 2.0 from table.stronghold.com. Yeah, that's right. Did you really think you were safe from the Even if Games Workshop ends up nerfing your entire army, at least you know that it'll be safely stored until 11th edition if you put them in a Mad Case 2.0. It doesn't matter how much Dakka an orc has, they can't even begin to damage the strong MDF construction. Will be immediately repelled by the power of magnets. Whether it's a grot or a stomper, the adjustable trays allows all victims of the nerf hammer to be stored securely. And if you go to table.stronghold.com right now, there's 30% off in the spring sale on cases and terrain. And as always, there's free shipping to the USA, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and most of the EU. So go to table.stronghold.com right now or click my link in the description to protect yourself from the inevitable meta changes. And you are going against unnerfed More Dakka soon. You can always counter them by hitting them as hard as you can with your brand new Mad Case 2.0. Just swing away. Swing as hard as you can. Really, really go for it. Really make sure that they really just absolutely kill. So, yeah, Ben's a great player, nicest guy, wish him all the best. But let's talk about More Dakka. This section is going to be a little technical, but I'll try to explain it as best I can for those who aren't that deep into the game of 40k. I won't go super deep into everything, but hopefully you'll be able to follow along. Long-time viewers are probably quaking their boots here. I'm about to try and explain something. We're talking a million miles an hour, so what become nearly incoherent. So let me take a moment, take a breath, and calm down, and just chill a little bit. Let's talk Dakka. The easiest way to do this is to first go over the main detachment rule and then go through Ben's winning list to identify what it's designed to do. This list is disgusting, frankly. And I didn't even get to feel the full brunt of it. I got insanely lucky by both playing Vanguard Spearhead and also rolling to go first. The detachment rule is Dakka, Dakka, Dakka. It's basically impossible to say the word Dakka without going into the orc voice, so I apologize. During your shooting phase, ranged weapons equipped by orcs infantry and orcs walker models from your army have the sustained hits 2 ability. While the Wah is active from your army, ranged weapons equipped by orcs infantry and orc walker models also have the assault ability. No, I'm not going to go Wah every time I say Wah. It's going to be a pain in the ass for both me and you, so I'll give you one more. As this does specify your shooting phase, that means that this doesn't work for Overwatch or the return fire stratagem or for shooting out of firing deck like from trucks, which you might think is a nice compromise, but it's actually completely not worth talking about because of how busted this rule is anyway. The War normally gives you a bunch of bonuses to movement and melee, which is what orcs want to do. They want to get stuck in your face and hit you very hard. The main bonus that a default War gives here is the 5+ invulnerable save, essentially giving your army immunity to AP, as most things are already saving on a 4 or 5+, or in the case of Gretchin, they literally have no save at all. More Dakka allows you to advance and shoot with the assault keyword, which for an army that wants to shoot you is very powerful. But, and this shouldn't be forgotten, orcs are still orcs. Even in this shooting-focused detachment, they are still scary in melee. In fact, the detachment has a stratagem reminding you of this, aptly named Orcs is Still Orcs. The main thing, though, and the thing that causes this to be completely broken, is sustained hits 2 for all ranged weapons. When you roll a 6 to hit, what is known as a critical hit, you gain an additional 2 extra successful hits, making each 6 on the die actually worth 3 hits. Normally, orcs are hitting on a 5 up. If you roll 6 attacks, average odds say you hit 2 of those. However, sustained hits 2 makes that 6 add 2 additional successes, bringing the total up to 4. That's essentially equivalent of orcs having a 3+ to hit, but not literally due to variance and stuff, because the dice aren't always going to be super neat, so getting extra 6s suddenly spikes the damage way higher, but hopefully this will serve as a rough guide to the buff that this gives as we go forward. The way I'm going to visualize this is essentially that each attack you'll roll sequentially, so you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to kind of give us a good average. So when you call the War, your whole army can suddenly advance and shoot with these absurdly souped up weapons that just delete you from existence. There is nothing more horrifying than seeing an orc player roll their dice, pick up their myriad of misses from their roll, look at what's left, and just put all those dice back in the pool because of the same hits. And remember, now that they're in your face and have shot a bunch of your stuff, when you shoot back, they basically have a third chance to save instead of you being able to remove orcs piecemeal like you normally would. One thing Ben brought up was that whilst I did kill a decent amount on my turn 2, I could have tried to be more cagey and wait for the invulnerable save to expire and then shoot, and I could have got more stuff. However, as we're about to see, that probably wouldn't have worked anyway. The detachment also has a whole bunch of enhancements and stratagems to improve hits or AP or whatever, but none of that actually matters except one. Get stuck in, lads! Which for 1 command point gives a unit in your army the effect of the War, even if you've already called it. So a 5-up invuln, advance and shoot and charge, damage and melee, etc, etc. This stratagem turns this already ridiculous attachment into the most broken thing alive. Keep this in mind. So the shooting is scary, right? But how do you actually exploit that fully? Ben's answer, and I think the answer of basically every pro player, is flash kits, looters, Tankbustas, and Gretchin? I won't go into details about how to actually play the army properly with trucks and whatever. I just want to show the data sheets and how they move Dakka stats back and the damage output to absolutely astronomical levels. Let's start with the flash kits. Flash kits have snaz guns, 3 attacks each, strength 6, 1 AP, and 2 damage. These will run in units of 5 models, which costs only 80 points. And they're actually quite tough with a 4-up save and 2 wounds. That's pretty tough for an orc. And they're still pretty nasty in melee. Those choppers are no joke. So that's 15 attacks. If we use our dice methodology and lay it out like this, that's 8 hits. But eagle-eyed viewers may have seen this ability, Gun Crazy Show-Offs, which means that if they target the closest eligible target, each weapon has 4 attacks instead. Remember, they can advance and shoot with these weapons. This gives them 20 shots, and in our method of trying to replicate the average, that's 12 hits. But I'm still not done. Once for battle, they can give their weapons lethal hits, so those 360s we roll don't even need to wound. They just go straight through to the saving throw. But wait! There's more! Snaz guns have the heavy keyword. If they don't move, they get +1 to hit, meaning that they hit on 4s, so those 20 attacks turn into 15 hits. And that's the least strong unit of the 4. Ben only brought 2 lots of 5 of these, instead opting in for 3 maxed out squads of looters and 3 maxed out squads of tankbusters. So let's take a look at those. Looters comprise 8 looters and 2 spanners for the low cost of 100 points. They're not as tough as flash kits, but they get access to def guns. These are rapid fire 1, so within half range, 24 inches in this case. They get an extra attack, so 3 attacks each. Remember, they can advance and shoot, so getting into positions isn't that tricky. They do, however, only hit on 6s. Unless they're led by a big mech, but let's keep it simple, just go off the baseline. 24 shots. Hitting on 6s with sustained hits too, that's 12 hits. That's half of them from a weapon that is priced to only hit 4 on average. But they can also reroll 1s to hit, or reroll all hits while targeting an enemy that is on an objective. If we reroll just the 1s in either method, we don't actually get any extra hits. But if we reroll all the missed shots, out of 24 shots, we hit 21. On a weapon that's normally hitting on 6s, it hits nearly every single time. They're strength 8, meaning wounding a spaceman on 2s, and even my centurions on 3s, and they're 2 damage each. And we haven't even talked about the spanners. During the game, Ben targeted one of my units of 5 Vanguard vets. Each spanner was equipped with a custom Mega Blaster. 3 attacks each, 6 total, hitting on 5s. So 4 hits with sustained 2. Reroll the 1s, not much changes. Reroll the misses. Okay, in our example method, nothing changes either. So I guess 4 out of 6 shots is fine. For a moment there, I thought it'd be completely busted. But oh wait, yeah, they're strength 9, minus 2 AP and damage D6. The issue with effects that go off on critical hits is that when you roll above the average, it exponentially skews the numbers even further. I want to interrupt myself here with a thought I had whilst editing this section. I don't think I made clear why the 6s really exponentially cause things to skew out of control. So let's talk about that very briefly. Earlier I said that having sustained hits 2 is essentially equivalent to a 3-up ballistic skill, but that's not entirely correct. Let's say the orcs had a 3-up ballistic skill instead of sustained hits 2. Obviously on average you're going to be hitting more, but you could roll like 5 6s and it wouldn't really change anything. Yes, that's a hot roll, that's a lot of 6s, but you were looking for 3s, so it doesn't really matter. In this situation with those 5 6s, that really matters. I mean, maybe what happened here is the person who designed this went, oh yeah, sustained hits 2 is equivalent to BS3, and that doesn't seem too bad, but the problem is it's not the same. Mathematically on average, yes, but not practically. These 2 spanners on average shouldn't be killing a squad of Space Marines. As we can see, they only get 4 hits, so they couldn't possibly, but as we're about to see, getting a hot roll tilts the scales far too much. Ben rolled pretty hot, getting way more than 6 attacks through because he rolled 4 6s, and the unit of looters wiped out my Vanguard veterans very quickly. And I say unit of looters. The 8 def guns didn't even need to fire. The damage was done by 2 models. And remember, Ben has 3 of these units. And then look at Tankbustas. As tough as flash kits, but with 5d3, strength 9, AP2 damage 3 blast rockets, adding 1 to hit and wound against monsters' vehicles, and once per battle improving that to strength 10, AP3 for 135 points. 5d3, so 9 attacks with our methodology. Let's take the worst case scenario, and they're shooting a monster or vehicle, so hitting on 4s. 5 hits, buffed up, that's strength 10, meaning it wounds a dreadnought on 4s. It's actually 3s, because it's +1 to wound. A 5+ save, each being 3 damage. Oh, and they can be led by a big mech that can get rerolls of 1 to hit as well, meaning that those 2 1s become 2 extra hits. Fuck it, whilst we're here, might as well talk about the big mechs with shock attack guns, of which Ben had 3, each with their D6 +1 attacks that are also D6 damage. Oh, and they get affected by the Tankbustas rule, which while they're in unit means they get +1 to hit and wound, or they could just take an enhancement that gives them +1 to hit all the time to themselves and their unit. Instead of keep it simple for looters, but go back and look at that section, now add to the fact that they get +1 to hit as well. It's what the? If it isn't abundantly clear already, More Dakka needs nerfing. But making the dice roll a formality that you can just skip and tell your opponent you'll auto-hit isn't the only trick in the More Dakka playbook. Remember Gretchin? For 80 points, you can get 20 of these goofy little gremlins with 2 run thirds, which I can't help but read as run thirds, but I digress. And sure, they're not exactly good, right? They have no save if they're hit. Everything basically is wounding on 2s. They have 1 weak piddly shot that hits on 4s, and they're very susceptible to blast. My 6 strong Centurion Devastators would be getting 6d3 plus 24 shots on these guys. But let me introduce you to Zodgrod Wartsnagga. This epic hero can lead Gretchin and give them a nice amount of buffs. They get Scout 9 inches, +1 to hit and wound, and when targeted, the unit gets -1 to wound, and during the war, the unit can move an extra 6 inches. So you could Scout 9 inches, call the war, and then move another 12 inches. And okay, sure, that's a lot of distance, but it's not really that good. I mean, you have to call the war in your first turn to get that movement. So if you don't call the war in your first turn, you're kind of screwed. Unless you had a way of only calling the war on a specific unit. Oh no. Remember how I said I was lucky that I got to go first? Yeah, that's because if I hadn't gone first, I would be, as the kids would say, cooked. cooked. Ben can just give Zod and his Gretchin the War on their own. Scout 9 inches, move 12 inches, advance another d6, and make one long grot line that spans from one end of the board to the other, 21.d6 inches from my side of the board. As long as each model is within 2 inches of at least 2 other models, he can spread this unit out across the entire board and not allow it to break through it. And now remember, in the War, they have a 5-up save, and Zod gives them -1 to wound. So even if I did fire my 6d3 plus 24 shots, let's say 36, looking at our methodology, I'm hitting on 3s, so that goes down to 24, and let's charitably say that they're on an objective, so I'm fully re-rolling the hit roll, so add another 8 back to 32. Wounding on 3s with my strength 9 weapon against a toughness 2 enemy means I lose another third, down to 22 successful wounds. Another third of those get saved, down to 15. That unit with Zod is 23 models. Zod plus 22 Gretchin is 160 points. That's 170 points cheaper than the devastated assurance I just threw everything at, and I didn't even get close to the character. That means a huge chunk of the board of Ben's choosing is still blocked off to me. Oh, remember those 20 piddly Gretchin shots? They hit on 3s now because of Zod. Those 20 shots, that's 18 hits. Wounding Space Marines on 5. No, +1 to wound, that's 4s. 9 get through, fail 3. That kills a Marine and a half. And sure, that grot wall will die, but it'll tank most of your army, and then the Orcs can just call the real War with all their units that have staged, wipe out everything that came out to deal with the grot cage, and anything that remains can be targeted by wired up units individually for a single command point every round until you're done. Because I went second, and having Vanguard Spearheads -1 to hit, I was actually allowed to play some Warhammer for at least 2 rounds. Even though I didn't get the full brunt of the grot cage, Ben still used Zod's unit to effectively hem me in on one of the objectives close to my deployment zone. And I don't think I ever got through it all, because if they want to be safe from you shooting them, they can just go into melee. Remember, they can advance and charge. I thought I'd killed a lot of the stuff in my round 2. I was looking in Ben's box full of these dead orcs, and I could see a decent chunk of his army there. But then the Orcish Clown card took effect, and suddenly the board was flooded with green, and it looked like I'd barely made a dent. If it isn't abundantly clear at this point, you probably aren't really into 40k rules and probably just listened to me rant about a bunch of stuff you didn't really get. So I'll say it again, just to be clear. More Dakka needs nerfing. However, GW has a history of doing the dreaded double nerf. They nerf the units that exploit a powerful army or detachment, and then also nerf the detachment, meaning that the detachment is worse, the units it relied on are also worse, and then other lists that use those units get caught in the crossfire, making the entire army worse just because of one detachment. I've had this happen to me several times, catching strays from Blood Angels players getting Vanguard Veterans nerfed, Dark Angels and Ironstorm players getting Storm Raven nerfed, and your Real Venturous getting Devastated Centurions nerfed. And then also later getting Centurions buffed, so you win some, you lose some. A recent example of this is the Bridgehead Strike detachment for Imperial Guard, with GW nerfing the detachment a bunch, and also units that relied on that detachment. But is it possible to make Dakka Orks playable without being broken? I mean, balance is extremely tricky, but a trap I think people fall into is seeing it fall out of the meta and equating that to it being bad. I mean, yeah, sometimes when it falls out of the meta into obscurity, it's because it was crippled by a nerf. But also there's the hyperbolic reactions of internet denizens to fear the sky is falling anytime something is buffed or nerfed, so we have to be a little bit careful when discussing this. I mean, any nerfs to more Dakka Orks are likely to make players like Ben shift to a new detachment, but that's just how pro players work. They won't leave anything on the table to get a victory because it's their job, but as I've said, that doesn't make someone using that list instantly a poor sport. That's just the nature of this competition. Ben is an excellent example of a pro player with a fantastic attitude and demeanor. He was actually constantly apologetic and hated that he had to play more Dakka because he knew how absurd it was, but it's his job to win. He's still put in the years of practice and learning how to play the game and get the best out of any list, regardless of what that list is. If you trained and became an amazing runner with the goal of winning a big race and were to race in a 100-meter sprint against 7 other people who were also just as top level as you, and so handed you a pair of shoes that were slightly lighter and let you run 1% faster, you take it. Although I guess actually maybe feats of physical strength probably wouldn't make you want to do it to win based on your actual physical prowess, and maybe that metaphor falls apart. Okay, I guess it's because all your opponents are wearing the magic shoes. You wouldn't want to fall behind because you didn't have magic shoes, I guess. This metaphor is getting out of hand. Let me try again. Okay, let's say you're a chess player and someone offers you a device to help communicate what move you should make, but the only caveat is that you have to wear it up your... Look, what I'm saying is Ben is a tournament-winning player who isn't going to blow an opportunity by not using the best army, and I think he recognizes that, so has a respectful and humble mindset, knowing that the meta is bad, but also still dedicated the time to pilot that broken list to victory. There were 12 Dakka Orks players, and only 1 winner. This is starting to sound like this video is my application to the Ben Jones fan club. I really don't mean to belabor the point. I just want to emphasize that you can be a gracious and respectful player while also being competitive. And I want to highlight the positives in the community to combat potential negativity around this kind of stuff. But if there is a Ben Jones fan club, let me know. I'd join it. I'd wear a Ben Jones shirt to show my support. Hell, he's been called the Lionel Messi of 40k by his team on their social media. But still, More Dakka is actually a really cool and flavorful detachment. Orcs are bad at shooting, using the shotgun approach to guns by just yeeting weight of fire and hoping a few of them land. You can fire one shot and be 100% accurate, or fire 100 shots and be 5% accurate. The first shooter has more skill, but the orc hit you 5 times instead of 1. So it would make sense that orcs would just increase the number of shots. Now it's 300 shots at 5%. Now they've hit you 15 times. And also it should remain playable and fun. Even though I took a very silly list of the tournament, I actually do think I could do fairly well with it. I don't want to be a 5-0 player, and the majority of people at this tournament are probably similar and just want an option to play a fun list and come up with their own ideas. And something like More Dakka Orks would be perfect for that if it just wasn't so utterly broken. It's well documented that I'm not very good at the old balance. So here are some ideas that I've seen on how to bring More Dakka in line with some other detachments and a couple of other thoughts I've had for myself. Make it sustained hits 1. Make it sustained hits 1, but sustained hits 2 in the war. Make it sustained 1, but sustained 2 if you want to for hazardous. Give everything hazardous except in the war. Don't also have assault in the war. Give it something else like maybe rapid fire. Make the war strat 2 CP. Make the war strat once per game. Make the war strat once per unit per game. Make the war strat an enhancement so that a character has to do it and only for their own unit. I've not done the maths on this. I don't know if any of these would be good fixes or not, but to be fair, neither did Games Workshop when they made the detachment, so at least I'm on their level. This video is getting way too informative. A little bit too much of actual competitive review, balance analysis, meta discussion, whatever. I can't let you go through this entire video without adding a little bit of that Paul-flavored insanity you've come to expect. If I did, this video might be considered good advice. We can't have that. That's disgusting. So here's my version of More Dakka. Too much Dakka. Make it sustained hits 3. For every critical hit, the unit suffers a mortal wound. Hey, that big mech got 7 attacks and rolled all 6s. Congratulations! You hit 28 times. But you're also dead. Those looters loaded up and got 5 big hits. Now the unit's wiped. You did a lot of damage. You cropped better than anyone, but you just had too much ammo. But Paul, what about the Stomper? Giving sustained hits 3, it needs to roll 36s before it blows up. And that sustained hits 3 is devastating on all those weapons. Good. Make people bring a Stomper. You probably have a lot of reasons for why this idea is actually even more broken. And yeah, it probably is. But it is funny. Now, let me know your thoughts about all of this balanced stuff in the comments. However, to keep things light and to avoid getting too much into that competitive bickering that you have on the internet, you must comment like you're an orc. Get stuck in, lads. And thanks for watching, Gitz. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube gubbins. If you've got a spare Dakka and want to help a fellow lad become a member, or make sure like these proper bosses, lets me make more of this type of proper stuff and gets you into secret club where we can get a really sore throat trying to talk like this for too long. Jesus fucking Christ. Ugh.